The man walking me down the aisle wasn't my father. I stood at the altar of Manhattan's most exclusive church, 300 guests watching, unaware they were about to witness the most explosive wedding scandal in society's history. The silver-haired stranger beside me leaned in and whispered, "You look beautiful, sweetheart." But his manicured hands had never changed motor oil at 2 a.m. to pay for my college textbooks. His Harvard accent had never read me bedtime stories in a cramped Brooklyn apartment above an auto shop. In that instant, I realized my future mother-in-law had erased my family, live in front of Manhattan's elite. But here's the part that will blow your mind: she didn't just hire fake parents. She convinced my real parents that their love wasn't good enough, and paid them $50,000 to disappear from the most important day of my life. And what happened next didn't just expose her lies. It burned her entire $40 million empire to the ground before the cake was even cut. My name is Chloe Bradley, and what you're about to hear sounds like something out of a psychological thriller. But I have bank records, email chains, video footage, and 300 witnesses to prove that some people will literally pay to erase your entire identity. By the end of this story, a woman worth $40 million will be completely destroyed. In exactly 18 minutes, you'll watch Nathan Pierce publicly choose me over his mother in front of Manhattan's elite. At the 22-minute mark, you'll see security footage of the hired actors trying to escape through the kitchen. The revenge I got was so perfect it's still trending on social media 3 years later. But first, let me tell you how a fairy tale romance became a nightmare that made national headlines. 6 months before my wedding day, I genuinely believed I was living in a Cinderella story. Nathan Pierce came from old Manhattan money, the kind that doesn't just buy things, it buys people. Their family owned half the city's most exclusive real estate. When we got engaged, the announcement made page 6 before Nathan even called his own father. I worked as a pediatric nurse at Mount Sinai Hospital, saving children's lives for 12-hour shifts. My entire annual salary, $38,000, wouldn't cover Vivian Pierce's monthly flower arrangements. But what I discovered next changed everything. The first red flag should have been when Nathan's mother insisted on meeting my parents at the Plaza Hotel. Not our apartment. Not a restaurant. The Plaza. My parents were terrified. Mom spent grocery money on a Macy's dress, her hands trembling as she smoothed the same crease over and over again, her knuckles whitening with each nervous pass. Dad borrowed his brother's only good suit and spent the entire car ride rehearsing polite greetings under his breath, his voice cracking every time he tried to sound confident enough for Manhattan society. Little did I know, Vivian wasn't evaluating them, she was studying them for replacement. What you don't know yet is that during that Plaza Hotel meeting, Vivian Pierce took mental notes on every imperfection. Dad's calloused hands from 30 years of mechanical work. Mom's nervous habit of straightening her dress. The way they both reached for the cheapest menu items then caught themselves. She filed away every detail for later use. But I thought her obsession with wedding perfection was just stress. I had no idea that in her twisted mind, my parents were just another detail that needed upgrading. The truth was so much worse than I imagined. 2 weeks before the wedding, something happened that should have warned me everything was about to collapse. My parents, who had been calling me daily with excited questions, suddenly became distant. When I called Mom, her voice sounded broken. "Honey, we're not feeling well. Maybe we should skip some of the wedding events." "Skip them? Mom, you've been looking forward to this for months. We don't want to embarrass you in front of Nathan's family." The words hit like a physical blow. But she'd already hung up, leaving me staring at my phone in complete confusion. And that's when I realized I had made a terrible mistake trusting Vivian Pierce. What I didn't know was that 3 days earlier, Vivian had visited my parents' auto shop in Brooklyn. She arrived in her chauffeur-driven Bentley, stepping carefully around oil stains in $1,000 heels. She told them with surgical precision that their presence would make me a laughingstock among Manhattan society. That Nathan's business partners were gossiping about his choice to marry beneath his station. That if they really loved me, they would find a way to bow out gracefully. She never explicitly asked them to stay away. He was too smart for that. She planted seeds of shame that grew into the belief that sacrificing their happiness was the ultimate act of parental love. Then she offered them a solution. In just 10 minutes, I would discover the most devastating betrayal of my life. But I had no idea the fake parents weren't her only deception. That same week, my phone kept buzzing with calls from Janet Morrison, Channel 7 News. Miss Bradley, this is about your wedding and some very concerning information I've received. Chloe, I've uncovered something about your parents that you need to know before Saturday. This is urgent. I have evidence of arrangements involving your family. I deleted every message without listening. The last thing I needed was some journalist creating drama for ratings. What I discovered next broke my heart in a completely different way. I had no idea this reporter was my only hope of preventing the most humiliating moment of my life. The morning of my wedding, I woke up in the bridal suite at the St. Regis, surrounded by $10,000 worth of silk and pearls. But as hours passed through hair, makeup, and endless photographs, one question kept nagging. Where were my parents? They'd promised to see me before the ceremony. Mom was supposed to help me into my dress. Dad was supposed to give me his mother's jewelry for something old. By noon they still hadn't appeared. The laughter of my bridesmaids felt muffled, like I was trapped underwater. Every tick of the gilded clock on the wall pounded in my chest. One beat closer to walking alone. But the real show was just getting started. My phone buzzed again, another voicemail from Janet Morrison. This time desperation made me listen. Chloe, if you're hearing this, your wedding is starting soon. Those people walking you down the aisle, they are not your parents. They are professional actors hired by your mother-in-law. Your real parents are in Queens right now, watching on live stream because they were paid $50,000 to stay away. My hands went completely numb. I could taste the champagne turning bitter in my mouth. I scrolled through the week's ignored messages, and with each voicemail the horrifying picture became clearer. We have bank records showing payments to Prestige Acting Agency. Your mother-in-law has been planning this for months. We found your real parents. They think they're protecting you. As I sat in my wedding dress, surrounded by bridesmaids chattering about flowers, I felt like I was drowning in a nightmare. My future mother-in-law had hired actors to replace my parents. My real parents thought they were protecting me by staying away. And in 20 minutes I was supposed to walk down the aisle pretending everything was perfect. Then I spotted them for the first time. The elderly guest Mrs. Ashworth had been right. Something felt performed, too polished for genuine love. The man wore a custom tuxedo that fit perfectly because it had been made specifically for him. The woman glittered in diamonds, her makeup professionally applied, her smile practiced and camera-ready. They looked like they belonged in Nathan's world of inherited privilege. They looked nothing like Tom and Carol Bradley, who had raised me above an auto shop and worked double shifts to send me to college. Nathan's face when he realized what his mother had done. You're about to see it and I'll never forget it. With trembling fingers I called Janet Morrison back. Thank God you finally called. Her voice was immediate. We need to talk about what's really happening at your wedding. I don't understand. How do you know about my parents? I'm an investigative journalist tracking hired actors at society weddings. Mrs. Ashworth contacted our newsroom with concerns. We've spent the last week investigating and what we found will shock you. The organ music began. 300 guests were waiting. I can't. I'm about to walk down the aisle. Chloe, listen carefully. We have documented evidence. Bank records, email chains, contracts with Prestige Acting Agency. Your mother-in-law orchestrated this entire deception and convinced your real parents that staying away was an act of love. The fake father approached, offering his manicured arm with a toothpaste commercial smile. Ready, sweetheart? But his soft palms had never worked overtime to pay for my textbooks. This stranger's hands had never taught me to change a tire on Sunday afternoons. I had two choices. Expose the lie in front of 300 of Manhattan's most powerful people, or let this deception become the foundation of my marriage. What happened next was caught on camera by 300 witnesses. I placed my trembling hand on the actor's arm because what else could I do? As we walked down the aisle, every step felt like walking through quicksand. The expensive cologne that smelled like a boutique, not a drugstore. The perfect posture from years of etiquette training. The practiced ease of someone who had done this exact walk dozens of times before. As he had. For other wealthy families who needed their reality upgraded. During the ceremony I went through the motions like a robot. I said vows, exchanged rings, smiled for photographers, all while my mind raced with questions that threatened to drive me insane. Where were my real parents? Were they watching this travesty thinking they were protecting me? How long had Vivian been planning this? How many other families had fallen victim to her twisted need for perfection? The ceremony ended with applause and organ music. But I felt like I was sleepwalking through someone else's life. In exactly 5 minutes I would make a decision that destroyed her forever. The reception began at sunset in the St. Regis ballroom. Crystal chandeliers, white roses flown in from Ecuador, china worth more than my parents' car. It was everything I'd dreamed of, built on a foundation of lies. My fake father gave a toast, speaking eloquently about memories that had never happened, milestones we had never shared. To my beautiful daughter, who has grown into the remarkable woman I always knew she would become. But he had never bandaged my scraped knees. Had never stayed up all night when I had pneumonia. Had never cried at my nursing school graduation. During dinner I slipped away and called Janet again. We found them. Tom and Carol Bradley. Your real parents are watching your live stream from a hotel in Queens, and Chloe, they are heartbroken. My heart cracked in half. They were told showing up would ruin your happiness. They think they're being noble. Can you prove all of this? Everything. Bank records showing $50,000 to your parents. $15,000 each to the actors. Email chains that will make your blood run cold. Send it all to my phone. Right now. I'm about to blow up the most expensive wedding of the year. The father-daughter dance was scheduled for 9 o'clock. I had 1 hour to decide whether to expose this deception or let the lie become my foundation. At 9 sharp the band began The Way You Look Tonight, the song Dad and I had chosen together. The fake father was a flawless dancer, obviously professionally trained. He knew the technical steps but didn't know that my real father hummed off-key when happy, that his hands shook from an old injury, that we always dissolved into laughter when he stepped on my toes in our tiny living room. This stranger knew the performance, not the heart. After the dance, I found Nathan's business partner Robert near the bar. I need control of the ballroom's projection system. The screens, the audio, everything. Is everything okay? You're about to find out. When this happens, trust me. No matter how crazy it seems. Watch what happened next. It's both devastating and beautiful. I waited until cake cutting, when every person would be focused on Nathan and me. Instead of picking up the knife, I stepped back and walked to the microphones. Ladies and gentlemen, before we cut this beautiful cake, I have something very important to share tonight. Nathan looked confused. Vivian, beaming from the front row, suddenly looked alert, something predatory flickering in her expression. Mrs. Ashworth caught my eye and gave me an almost imperceptible nod. Tonight represents the joining of 2 families. The Pierce family with their distinguished legacy. Polite applause. Vivian relaxed, thinking I was delivering standard thanks. And the Bradley family. My parents, Tom and Carol Bradley, who raised me to value honesty, hard work, and unconditional love. I gestured toward the fake parents, who smiled and waved like seasoned professionals. Except, I paused until the silence became uncomfortable. These aren't my parents. The ballroom fell completely silent. Mrs. Ashworth's voice cut through like a blade. I knew it. These are actors. Professional performers hired and paid by my new mother-in-law to replace my real parents, who were deemed too embarrassing for this gathering. Nathan's face went white, confusion, then dawning horror. His hand reached for mine instinctively, not to stop me but to support me. Vivian stood so quickly her chair crashed backward, her perfect composure cracking like porcelain. That's impossible. Judge Harrison called out, but his voice lacked conviction. What you're about to see is the most satisfying moment of social justice ever caught on camera. My real parents love me unconditionally, I continued. Tom Bradley worked double shifts to put me through nursing school. Carol Bradley cleaned offices at night so I could have textbooks. They taught me that worth isn't measured by bank accounts, but by how you treat people. Nathan's grip tightened, protective, not restraining. Tonight, they're not here because they were told their presence would ruin their daughter's happiness. They're watching from Queens, believing that staying away was the greatest gift they could give me. Gasps echoed throughout the ballroom. So before we celebrate this marriage built on deception, I want you to meet my real parents. I signaled Robert, who activated the projection system. Wedding slideshows vanished, replaced by live stream feeds around the ballroom. Mom? Dad? Can you hear me? The screens flickered to life with my parents' faces, Mom's hands trembling as she covered her mouth, tears streaming. Dad's eyes wide with shock, breath coming in short gasps. Mrs. Ashworth sat beside them, her hand on Mom's shoulder. "Hi, baby girl," Dad's voice cracked through the speakers. "You look so beautiful." The contrast was devastating. Here were my real parents, Dad in his borrowed suit, Mom in her Macy's dress bought with grocery money, both glowing with pure, unconditional love even as they struggled with missing their daughter's wedding. Meanwhile, the hired actors stood frozen like department store mannequins, their professional composure cracking under 300 pairs of judging eyes. An older woman near the front dabbed her eyes with a napkin and whispered to her companion, "That girl has more courage than anyone in this room." A young man near the bar muttered to his date, "Finally, someone standing up to them." A small voice from the crowd, Judge Harrison's granddaughter. "Grandpa, why is the pretty lady crying? Are those her real mommy and daddy on the TV?" "Yes, sweetheart. Those are her real parents and they love her very much." Dr. Patricia Webb, my colleague from Mount Sinai, stepped forward. "Those are definitely your biological parents. The facial structure, expressions, mannerisms, this is clearly authentic family connection." The ballroom erupted. Conversations broke out at every table. Phones appeared everywhere as guests documented what was becoming a major scandal. "How could you do this to your own daughter-in-law? This is absolutely disgusting. What kind of monster pays someone's parents to stay away?" But the real destruction was just beginning. Vivian pushed through the crowd toward the projection booth, but guests were rising now, some touching my arm supportively, others forming an unconscious barrier between her and me. "Turn it off," she screamed, voice shrill with panic. Robert blocked her path, business composure giving way to disgust. "Mrs. Pierce, we all need to hear this. All of it." Judge Harrison's wife Margaret stood up. "If this is true, this is unconscionable." Nathan grabbed a microphone, his face horror and shame and dawning understanding. "This can't be real. Mom, please tell me this isn't real." And then I watched something that will stay with me forever. The moment Vivian Pierce's entire world collapsed. As guests moved toward me in support, they unconsciously moved away from her. The ballroom that had been full of her friends became a vast space with Vivian standing utterly alone at its center. She spun desperately, looking for an ally, a friendly face, anyone. But everywhere she turned, cold shoulders and averted gazes. The magnificent ballroom designed to showcase her power now felt cavernous and condemning around her solitary form. "It was for the family," she said, voice small in the enormous space. "I did it for Nathan. For our reputation. Those people just don't belong in our world." "Stop right there," Judge Harrison boomed. "You mean honest, hardworking people who love their daughter? You mean people with integrity and genuine values?" I switched the projection to display evidence Janet had sent throughout the evening. Bank records flashed across screens around the ballroom. Email chains filled with Vivian's cold, calculating instructions. Contracts with prestige acting agency. "Vivian Pierce orchestrated this months ago," I announced, clicking through each damning document. One payment to Tom and Carol Bradley, $50,000 labeled wedding gift, but documented as payment for absence. Two payments to hired actors, $15,000 each for family portrayal services. Nathan's business partners read the emails in stunned silence. "The bride's real parents are working class. Completely inappropriate for our social circle." Dr. Webb read aloud, "This is sick. Actually sick. Make sure actors can discuss yacht clubs and wine collections. Our guests expect sophisticated conversation. The father must look distinguished enough to walk the bride down the aisle without embarrassing the Pierce family name." Judge Harrison stepped forward. "Mr. and Mrs. Bradley, can you hear us clearly?" Dad's voice, shaking with emotion, "Yes, sir. I'm Judge Harrison of Manhattan Family Court. What was done to you is wrong. Completely wrong. No parent should ever be made to feel their love isn't good enough. Your Honor, we just wanted what was best for our daughter. We thought we were protecting her future." Margaret Harrison crying openly, "You've done an excellent job raising her. Look at the courage she's showing right now." Through the screens I watched my parents' faces transform in real time. Mom's trembling lips curved into a small, proud smile as she understood their sacrifice hadn't been necessary. Dad straightened his shoulders, chest swelling with quiet dignity as he realized their love was being celebrated, not hidden. Mom blew me a kiss. "We love you so much, sweetheart. We're so proud of you." Dad mouthed, "We love you," voice too choked for words. But Vivian wasn't finished. Her desperation made her reckless. Those people would have embarrassed us in front of everyone who matters in this city. The ballroom exploded. "How dare you? Those people raised your daughter-in-law. This is monstrous. You should be ashamed." Nathan's body language shifted dramatically, stepping closer to me, physically choosing sides in front of everyone. "You're talking about my wife's parents. The people who raised the woman I fell in love with. The people who taught her the values that make her incredible." The evidence kept flowing across the screens. Email after email of Vivian's cold calculations. Ensure the mother's jewelry reflects appropriate social standing. Nothing suggesting middle-class origins. Dr. Webb's voice carried with medical authority as she read from the projections. "This documents premeditated emotional abuse." Judge Harrison addressed my parents through the screens. "Your daughter is showing remarkable courage right now. You clearly raised her right." Mom's voice through the speakers, trembling with emotion. "We're watching our baby girl stand up for what's right. We couldn't be prouder." The fake parents had been trying to edge toward the exit, but guests formed an unconscious barrier. The fake father attempted damage control. "We were told this was a standard family representation service." "Standard?" Dr. Webb cut him off. "You participated in emotional abuse and deception of 300 people." Mrs. Ashworth's voice from the hotel room carried clearly. "I've been investigating this agency. The Pierces aren't their only victims." Nathan stepped forward, his decision crystallizing. "She stays. My mother leaves. Now." Security appeared, but Nathan's direction was clear. The hired actors were escorted toward the kitchen exit. Exactly as I had promised at the beginning. Vivian Pierce, worth $40 million, limped alone through the ballroom on her broken heel, past scattered pearls and 300 people who had witnessed the complete destruction of everything she'd built her identity on. As she reached the ballroom entrance, she turned back one final time. Her makeup was completely ruined now, her hair had fallen from its perfect chignon, and there was something almost pitiable about her hunched shoulders. But then her eyes met mine across that vast space, and for just a moment, I saw not shame or remorse but pure, undiluted hatred. She mouthed something I couldn't quite make out, but the venom in her expression was unmistakable. Then she was gone and I never saw her again. That was 3 years ago. The video went viral within hours. "Wedding Fake Parents Scandal" has been viewed over 50 million times. Nathan and I are still married. We had a second ceremony 6 months later. Small, intimate, with my real parents walking me down the aisle. Dad cried the entire time. Mom helped me into my dress just like we'd always planned. Vivian Pierce's social standing never recovered. 3 other families came forward about the prestige acting agency. The scandal made national news. Nathan hasn't spoken to his mother since that night. Sometimes I feel guilty about that, but then I remember. She didn't just betray me, she betrayed the fundamental idea that love can't be bought or upgraded. My parents used the $50,000 to expand Dad's auto shop. It's called Bradley and Daughter Automotive, now. I'm the daughter on the sign and I've never been prouder. The fake parents. They lost their agency contracts and their reputations. Turns out deceiving Manhattan society comes with consequences. Mrs. Ashworth became one of my closest friends. She told me later she'd suspected something during the rehearsal dinner but needed proof. She's the one who connected me with Janet Morrison and saved my wedding from becoming a complete lie. Sometimes people ask if I regret exposing Vivian so publicly. But here's the thing, she didn't just try to erase my parents. She tried to erase the values that made me who I am. The work ethic, the authenticity, the understanding that worth isn't measured in dollars. She tried to buy me a better story, not realizing my real story was already perfect. If you've made it this far, you probably want to know what happened to the evidence. It's all public record now, part of the lawsuit that followed. Vivian faced the legal consequences too, but by then her reputation was already in ashes. And if you've ever been made to feel like you're not good enough, like you need to hide where you came from or apologize for your family, don't. The people who matter will love your authentic story. The people who don't matter. My parents taught me that your value isn't determined by your bank account or your zip code. It's determined by how you treat people, especially when no one's watching. Even now, years later, when grease stains streak my hands from helping Dad at the shop, I smile. Because those stains tell a story money could never buy. Vivian Pierce forgot that lesson. And in front of 300 witnesses, it destroyed her. Thanks for watching. If you believe courage can stand against cruelty, hit subscribe, because more stories of resilience and justice are on the way.